Hello. On behalf of MSU Denver, the College of Business, the Department of Management, and the Center for Entrepreneurship, welcome to Women Entrepreneurs Week. My name is Becky Prater, and I'll be the host. And thank you guys so much for joining us today. Okay. I am so excited because today we have Emily Hope Dobkin. She's the founder of a company called Betterish, which is about creative community building. Twisting together craft, play, and reflection, Betterish is about producing innovative experiences that nourish creativity and encourage meaningful social connections. It's a platform that remains dedicated to exploring the small actions, experiences, and lessons that lead to bigger things while acknowledging process and progress over perfection. So, Emily, that sounds amazing to me, and I can't wait to hear more. So, I'd like you to tell us kind of about your business. How did you get into it? What inspired you to start? All of that.
Sure. Well, first, I just want to thank you all for being here and thanks for having me and just thanks for listening to my story. So Betterish, as you just mentioned, is a platform that really creatively encourages people to make better things, better relationships, and better days. And I do this through a really wide range of community building experiences. Pre-COVID, what that looked like is doing a lot of like in-person workshops with a lot of community-based organizations and nonprofits, and also doing some creative consulting with organizations around how to make their programming more interactive and participatory. It also meant I did a lot of creative storytelling through zines. I don't know if you're familiar with zines, these little kind of like DIY kind of storytelling booklets. So there is an element of like creative marketing to my work. So this was for Stanley Marketplace. I'm not sure if you're familiar with
Oh,
it. It's
yeah.
where
Love that place.
so good. So this was just kind of like a fun way to share their story in a more pocket-sized format. So there was like a creative storytelling element. I worked with organizations to create participatory installations for events. I did pop-up events, and then things looked a little different once we entered the pandemic, which I'll get into in a little bit because I think we're going to talk about the pivoting portion a little bit later. But that's what things looked like before the pandemic. And I started this business about 2 years ago, really dedicating myself to it. My background is in arts education and community engagement. So before, I actually moved here around 3 years ago. And before that, I'm originally from the East Coast. I went to school on the West Coast, and I landed a dream job at the Santa Cruz Museum of Art and History. And so I was running public programs at a museum. At that museum, I wore a lot of different hats there. I was running youth programs, family programs, public programs. And so I got a lot of experience just working with a wide range of community members and a lot of different people, and really learning how to tap into creativity in a way that really using art and history as a way to bring people together. So a lot of my work is really rooted in social bridging. That being said, it was such an amazing experience, but I got burnt out. And then after about like 5, almost 6 years, and I moved here and I started applying for jobs that I thought I should be applying for based on my background, like nonprofit public programming jobs. And every time I was like writing a cover letter, I was getting so frustrated trying to fit the mold of these organizations when I knew I've always had like a bazillion side projects and ideas. And I remember distinctly texting a friend about that. She was like, "How's the job hunt going?" And I was, just saying, I'm just like so sick of trying to like fit the mold when I have all these ideas. And she worked for Colorado Lending Source, and they had this entrepreneurial development class that I know a lot of you know, Adam Melnick, who was the teacher. And so she encouraged me to take it, and that really just like opened the doors for me in terms of thinking not just think, I apparently I already had an entrepreneurial mindset. I didn't know that until I took that class, and it really gave me the opportunity to really explore and really focus on hubbing all of my creative side projects under this umbrella of Betterish. So at the time, Betterish was actually just like a blog, a personal blog of how I was doing things betterish. So this concept that things don't need to be the best, and that's really honoring process and progress over perfectionism, and that takes shape in a lot of different forms. And so I invited other people to share how they were doing it betterish, and then I realized like this whole like concept of philosophy of betterish could really help all my other projects that I was doing at the time. So that's like the backstory. And I know I'm rambling, so
Oh no,
I
I
want to
love,
know if
I love the rambling. That's the best.
you.
Wow. So, I do know that this is what sort of has been happening for people where they start off a blog, they have a blog and they keep that going and eventually it morphs into something. And then you realize, wow, why are we fitting into a box?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I'm not really good at fitting into boxes, except I can fit into this Zoom rectangle, and that's about it.
Oh,
I'm not, yeah, that's I will say, I feel like that's been thinking about just like the challenges of starting a very creative business like Betterish has been focusing as a creative person, being able to focus on on a particular element. Because when I was in the entrepreneurial development class, I feel like one of my biggest challenges and things that I was grappling with was, okay, like, do I focus on like the creative marketing thing, or do I focus on the in-person pop-up events, or do I focus on this meat cart that I can tell you about if you're interested?
yeah, we totally need to know about the meat cart.
Or do I focus on creative consulting and working with organizations to help them figure out how to make their programming more interactive and participatory? So that was really hard for me. And the route that I ended up going was just, I kind of threw it all out there. And I was like, let's just see what sticks. And I will say that the pandemic has really allowed me to really focus on the meat cart, which I'll just go ahead and tell you
Oh yeah,
about.
please do. Please do.
So the meat cart is this mobile structure that when we're not in a pandemic, I used to cart it around to different places and spaces here in Denver. And I would facilitate a series of games and prompts and activities that would get people to meet each other. So at the root of it, again, it's all about social bridging. And it's also rooted in this concept that everybody you meet has something valuable to teach you, whether you like it or not, or whether you know it or not.
Oh my God.
So it's really rooted in that concept. And during the pandemic, I realized, especially as we're social distancing, that there's a real need to socially connect people during this giant, massive time of social distancing. So I just experimented. I remember it was like a Sunday afternoon in March, right when things went into lockdown last year, playing one of the games that I usually play in person. I was like, let's see if we can play this virtually. And it worked. And I've been able to basically adapt that game to be played for everything from birthday parties to baby showers, bachelorette parties, company happy hours, university orientations. I've been working with such a wide range of people and organizations and companies, really bringing people together and forging these social connections, which is really hard to do right now as we're all working and learning from home. So that's basically what I've been doing during the pandemic, because I literally sit here every day and facilitate things from the meat cart.
Oh my gosh. So give us like an example of what that would look like.
Sure. So the game that I play, mostly, things have shifted a little bit, but the game I play is called 7-Second Stories. And I always tell people to prep these little pieces of paper, or Post-it notes work too. So everyone comes with little pieces of paper. And I give them a series of prompts. So I'll say, excuse me, I'll say, okay, you have 7 seconds to draw, and I'll give people a prompt. Sorry, I just need to drink something for a second. I give everyone a prompt of something to draw. And I preface it by saying it has nothing to do with artistic ability, Nobody can draw anything that great in 7 seconds. It's just supposed to get us in a more creative, active, playful headspace as we're all like staring at screens all day. So if I can get people off the screen, even if it's just for 7 seconds, I think that's really beneficial for a lot of reasons. At the end of the 7 seconds, I make the obnoxious sound of, and everyone holds their little drawings to the screen. So I usually start pretty light, like you have 7 seconds to draw your favorite animal. And so just to get people in that zone. But you know, for certain organizations or certain events, like I actually did an event based on risk taking and failure a few weeks ago. So the prompts were really based around that. Like you have 7 seconds to draw a time where you failed, you failed something, or you had 7 seconds. I did a lot of holiday parties, and a funny one that came out was you have 7 seconds to draw the worst gift you've ever received, which is really funny because that like elicited a lot of really funny stories. Or you have 7 seconds to write down a word you hope to never hear again after the pandemic is over. So there's a lot of like social distancing, you're on mute, you know, and so what these like drawings or words end up doing is they end up sparking conversation. So if it's a big group, if it's over 10 people, what we do is we do like 3 rounds and then we go into breakout rooms and have conversations around these prompts. And then we come back together, we do 3 more rounds, and then we go into new breakout rooms, and then we do 3 more rounds, and we go into new breakout rooms. So it's a way to like socially mingle on Zoom, but have like a starting point to have interesting conversations to learn more about each other and also find unexpected connections with each other. And the prompts, like I said, they can be really lighthearted and fun and silly, but then they can get really deep and really produce a sense of like vulnerability. So that's what I've been doing a lot of the past 10
My
months.
gosh. Well, it sounds like that just sounds amazing. And we still need it. In fact, maybe more than we did before, because, you know, before you could say hello to all your people in the hallway as you're walking through, and now you can't. So there is a very, you know, big disconnect with people. So I can see how you could bring this kind of activity into a happy hour or a staff meeting and
Mhm.
just give us a sense of connection to the people we work with.
Yeah, I think we're really missing those in between moments, you know, like we're not able to have those like hallway moments or like moments in the um you know, and grabbing coffee or things like that. And this game really kind of sparks those kinds of conversations that you have in the hallways or when you're grabbing coffee.
I love that. I also love that you could do sticky notes, you know, because I was
Yeah.
thinking if I asked my students, hey, I need you to write this down, I'm sure they'd be like, wait, I don't have any paper. So, you know, it's just whatever, you know, napkin, a Kleenex, whatever
Yeah.
to write on. That's so funny. Well,
Yeah.
I'm so impressed with this idea. I like the idea too that you kept all these elements in there because you know when I had a clothing company and sold so many black pants, but I had to have a whole lot of other things in my collection in order to sell a whole lot of black pants. So for you to have these things that people are more likely to choose, all the other things are essential to create the space and the expansive thinking so that people can interact. I don't know, it's just like your whole
Yeah.
program is about expanded thinking, it seems to me.
Yes, yes. And I will say, as I know a lot of us have been like also just like sitting a lot during Zoom, I'm starting to like expand just the concept of the 7 second stories to more of like a scavenger hunt format. So I just
Oh,
created like a new happy hour where you'll have more than 7 seconds, but I'll kind of, and I know it's hard for people to just be on screen a lot these days. So this is more like physically active in that I'll give people a list of things that they have to find just within their like work from home space. And then they come back and they talk about it. And it's kind of like the adult version of like show and tell.
totally like show and tell. Oh, we loved that when we were little.
Yeah, I used to love show and tell. So I I'm excited to really bring that, have that happen a little bit more often because I can tell I actually did have someone cancel something yesterday just because she was like, people are just zoomed out right now. And she's like, I want to do this closer to like this spring, but there's just been, it's kind of, I'm now kind of figuring out that balance of, okay, how can we still do something creative that brings people together, but it's like a little less screen timey because
Yeah.
it's hard for people to just be in our little rectangles all day.
I know it is. It is very much. Hey, so tell us about some of your biggest challenges in doing this business.
Sure. So I kind of touched upon it a little bit before. It was just initially kind of like honing in on like what the thing, like what Betterish is, was really challenging for me because I realized like it's kind of like a philosophy. It's kind of like a way of like living and thinking and doing and just being. And so that was really hard for me at first. And, like as I mentioned, I just kind of, and I continue to just kind of throw things out there to see what sticks. I think also just being I am a total like one woman show. And so I do the marketing, I do the content creation, I do the facilitation, I do the admin, I do the financials, I do everything. And that's hard. It's hard to especially again as a creative when you have so many ideas and you're like, I want to try this and this and this, and you like, if I could just create content all day, I think that's what I would do. And like ideas, I love generating just ideas and brainstorming. But there's, the whole admin side of things that is, I think that was the scariest part for me starting my own business was like, oh, I can't, like, I'm not good at math. I can't run my business, but I feel like, that actually quickly dissolved as I just was working with so many other people in that entrepreneurial class that I saw that we were all in the same boat, like starting from ground zero. And so I think that is definitely a challenge for sure. And also being a creative business, just knowing how to price things. So a lot of the things I do, again, is super creative and knowing how I'm coming from this nonprofit background where like I'm just so used to how like what nonprofits can pay for and coming from like really scrappy DIY spaces. I think that's been a big challenge. And even just shifting to virtual, at first I was like, I have no idea what to charge for a company happy hour. So I think definitely knowing how to price and value yourself as a creative business has definitely been a challenge that I like continue to like chip away at. But yeah, I would say those are probably my top
Oh
three.
my gosh, that must be really challenging. What about, so I would imagine you charge differently, a birthday party versus a bachelorette party versus a corporate setting situation.
Yeah. Yeah. So what I started doing initially, I was doing everything completely donation based. When COVID started, just because I was like, I have no idea how to, and I kind of gave people like a range. I was like between $100 and $200, just because I had no idea for that first month. And I was like, let's see if like how people are how much they're willing to pay. And then initially I was just doing I started the series called Meetful Mondays as a way for people to socially connect during a time of social distancing. And it was like totally free. And then from there, like someone came to that was like, hey, can you do this for my birthday party this week? And I'll pay you like $100 to do this. And so that was like an initial, that's kind of what brought me to like the birthday scene. And then I started booking a ton of birthday parties, which then turned into like retirement parties and anniversary parties and all these other like parties and things. And then someone came to one of those Meetful Mondays and said, hey, do you think you could do this for like my company next week? We've been doing these company happy hours and they've been so boring. And I think if we play this game, it'd be so much fun. And so then I kind of like up the price because I know companies have budgets for like happy hours that it's just kind of sitting there. And I do occasionally meet with like a business coach. And so during the summer, I finally just met with her. I was like, I have no idea how to be pricing. I think I'm totally underselling myself. And so I met with her and she helped me kind of realize just how much time I'm putting into everything. And So right now, like with the company happy hours, I have like a base rate of 325 for up to 20 people. And then as it grows, if it's like 30 people or 50 people, I kind of add on to that. Or if they want me to personalize the experience, like some people want me to do prompts. Like I did something for a conference a few weeks ago, and they wanted all leadership prompts. So that, that meant I have to kind of like restructure things. So if I have to restructure things or if I have to personalize things, then I kind of like tack on from there. And then I have kept the birthday parties and like the baby showers and bachelorettes donation based, just because I know that's coming out of people's personal pockets. And I just, everyone's in such a wild financial space right now. But I did kind of up it's between like $150 and $300. And so like anything within that range is greatly appreciated. And that structure, that I have like a pretty, like I do the same thing every time. So, that feels good. But with the company happy hours, it usually kind of like shifts depending on the amount of people or the group. So yeah, but yeah, it's very challenging to figure out.
Now, what is the biggest group you've had and how did you manage that?
So the biggest group, it was actually, I don't know, are you familiar with Creative Mornings?
No, I should be.
Um, there's Creative Mornings Denver, but then there's like Creative Mornings Global. And they're offering these like creative field trips right now where anyone can basically apply to host a creative field trip in some capacity. So I'm actually doing one. I can send you information to follow up. I'm doing another one in March called Wiggle While You Work, which is all about how to integrate play into your workday and how to take like more creative breaks throughout your workday experience. But I did one just playing the 7-second stories game back in June. And this is completely a volunteer experience, but I will say it did bring me a lot of business. Like from there, someone wrote an article about it, and then people hired me to do company happy hours. So it was great exposure. But it was with people literally all over the world. Like it started out around 200 people, I want to say. And, but they had someone someone else doing the breakout room. So I was basically facilitating, and then they had someone basically organizing the breakout rooms. But I mean, that was so cool though, in the sense that, there are people from Brazil, Australia, Berlin, and like having these like intimate conversations with each other and finding these unexpected connections. And that's like the goal with my work, is for people to connect more meaningfully and for the world to really feel like smaller and just more human because of that experience. So that was the biggest one I've done. I've done a few conferences, and like I did an orientation kickoff event where they like expected 300 people, but then it was like 100 people. That's the thing with virtual, is like you have all these people sign up, especially if it's like for for these things, a lot of these things, it's part of a conference or it's part of like an orientation experience. And you don't always know who's going to actually show up. So I would say like average is usually around 30 to 70 people these days. But like I could do up to 500 if we wanted to. That's the great thing about this format, is that it's geared for us to like all be together at first, but then kind of go into these smaller breakout rooms to have these more intimate conversations.
And when you guys do a breakout room if you had 500 people, how many people do you usually have in those breakout rooms?
Usually around 5, like 5 people. I haven't done 500 people per se, but when I did like the one with 200 people, it was around like 4 to 5 people in a breakout room. And I always encourage people to introduce themselves. I encourage people to change their name in their little Zoom rectangle to share where they are in the world. And if they want to share like their Instagram handle or their email, just so people can like follow up and stay in contact with each other. It's a great way to continue that relationship.
Ooh, that's fantastic. My goodness. Okay. So besides being super creative and to have an entrepreneurial mind, which I think is a person who just always sees opportunity.
Hmm.
and, are willing to step toward that opportunity. So what would you say are some of the, okay, like we have to be good at so many things. I mean, you
Hmm.
had to learn how to do the finance. You have
Yeah.
to learn how to do accounting. So now what would you say are some of the things you do the very best? What are the things you do best?
Um, you kind of touched upon it. So I really consider myself a possibilitarian. So I really like, I see possibilities all the time. Like I'm like, oh, that could happen, that could happen, that could happen. I'm very open to possibilities, and I'm a very open-minded person just in general. So I would say, yeah, definitely being a possibilitarian and also being a space maker. So I also am a big believer in creating spaces where people can share their thoughts, their ideas, their feelings, their vulnerability. And so, and also in a creative format. So yeah, I really see myself as a possibilitarian, as a space maker. Um, I've also learned, especially in the past year, that I'm incredibly adaptable. So yeah, being adaptable, being nimble, especially as you're starting a business, is really important. And I definitely think I have that characteristic. Um, and also just being able to work a lot of obviously my work is very rooted in like working with a lot of different people. So being able to adapt my work for a lot of different settings. So like I have brought this meat cart now to like cybersecurity companies, marketing agencies, universities, so being able to be adaptable to work with a wide range of people and settings is something that I've also learned in the last year, and something that I wanted to do initially when I started Betterish. I was like, I'd love to be bringing this work to more um, to less creative settings, because I feel like the less creative settings are the people that need to be like tapped into, need their creativity to be tapped into. And I was so used to doing this work with museums and galleries and schools and nonprofits. So um, initially that was my goal, and so I feel like the pandemic has allowed me to like virtually roll the wheels of the meat cart into some of these more corporate settings that, I mean, I had no idea that I like how to even like get into those settings before. So that's been really really awesome.
Well, that makes me wonder, what are the how do you market? How would you get into those companies, the cybersecurity and companies that need you, but they don't realize they do?
So that's also really interesting. Everything the past 10 months has been word of mouth. Like someone has attended a birthday party or has come to a Creative Mornings event or came. I did something with TEDx back in the fall, and they've come to something and they've reached out to me, or they told their boss about me, like, oh, you should hire this person for the holiday party. So everything has been word of mouth. I did, someone who came to that Creative Mornings event wrote an article about the meat cart for Convene magazine, which is like a magazine about um, just like public, I guess, meetings, like it's like a professional development magazine. And from that article, I got a lot of people reaching out to me. So I would say like getting press. There was an article I think written in Denver Westward, and what's the other one that there was last summer. There were a few articles. Like I sent a press release out to a few places, and from there that a few articles are written, and definitely from there that generated um, business and interest about the meat cart. I'm at a phase now where I'm actually gonna like revamp that press release and send it out, just because so much has not necessarily changed, but I've now worked with such a wide range of like companies and organizations that I can kind of curtail the story around that, like how adaptable this format is. And now I have some other offerings, like the scavenger hunt and the wiggle while you work. Like I have some other things. So sending those like press releases, I have a presence on social media with Instagram and LinkedIn, and I definitely try and utilize those outlets. I never know though. There's so much with social media these days. It's like you put it out there and you just have no idea like who's going to latch onto it or if it's going to actually bring business. But if anything, it's good. I kind of look at that more as like a blog. It's good to document everything I'm doing and kind of use it as a more reflective space. So, but like I am in this phase where I was like, I need to do some more like strategic outreach to keep getting those businesses for sure.
Mm. You know, you mentioned just now reflection, and that's one of the things I mentioned in your intro. So, how does that reflection piece play into what you're doing?
Yeah. So I think, the 7-second story game really does some of the prompts that I do, they can get pretty deep and allow people to um, really reflect very quickly and then like have the space to talk about it. Like one prompt that I often give is if you were to give a title to this chapter of your life, what would it be? And people write that down. And then from there, talking about it allows people to really reflect, on why they would title this chapter of their life that thing. So I always try with that game in particular to try and get offer those prompts that get people kind of thinking and reflecting more. With like the zines, I've done such a wide range of workshops with people around. Like I used to do a lot of workshops with teens and students and around like identity. So this is an example of a more like interactive zine that I did with one of my students. And it's definitely more like reflective around identity. So definitely just creating spaces, whether it's like within a zine or when I was doing more of those kind of interactive installations, like, when you go to a museum and they like ask you a question or and you're kind of contributing to something larger than yourself. So it takes place in a lot of different formats. I also like I actually studied, my undergrad was in creative writing. So I personally do, there's a blog portion on Betterish where I do a lot of reflecting, and even like on my Instagram account, there's a lot of me just like reflecting on where I am and really on this concept of like slowing down and taking time to acknowledge like the process and progress that we're making over the perfection.
Oh.
So yeah, it takes shape in a lot of different like forms and formats, but I hope that answered your question.
Well, it did, and it made me want to do a little thing. So I now that you mentioned the idea of what would you call this chapter in your life,
Mhm,
I'm pretty sure everybody in this group here today probably something came up, and
mhm.
I would like to have everybody jot it down in the chat. What
Yeah.
so do the prompt again, and then we'll give everybody do you get 7 seconds to come up with?
Yeah, so I always tell people I'm soft on the 7 seconds. So I say 7 seconds because I love alliteration, but I'll give you closer to like 10 or 20 seconds.
Okay, so say what is the question again?
So you have 7 seconds to write down, if you were to give this chapter of your life a title, what would it be? So go ahead and write that down in a little more than 7 seconds, starting now. Mm. All right, go ahead and start dropping it in the chat. Ooh, consistency is key.
Ooh,
Reborn, the hustle.
I love this. Mine's gonna take too long to type, so I'm just gonna tell you mine. Start.
Yeah, everyone keep dropping. And if possible, I want you to think about just like one word. If you can narrow it down to one word or two words,
Mhm.
one or two words, what would it be?
Oh, good changes. Be passion. Ooh, passion. Well, I'll put mine in there too.
Transformative. I love that.
Yeah, okay, but I had a whole sentence behind it. You know, I put clarifiers. So here's
Ooh,
this. It says transformative. How a mask and social distancing helped me understand me.
yeah, see, like there's, the subtype, the subline to your chapter, like, ooh, the climb back, Sean, I love that.
Innovation, that's good.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that one. The climb back's a good one. This is cool. I can see how I can see how this is so good. It kind of pops us out of our normal existence, you know? Like whoever asks these questions, nobody asks these
Yeah.
questions.
Another one I love to ask is, or the prompt I like to give is, you have 7 seconds to draw something that technology can't replace right now.
Ooh.
And every time I ask that or give that prompt, it's usually people drawing, people are writing hugs, and it's like about that, just like connection, that social connection, or just being with people. That's, so hard to do right now. So that's, I will, so I did a few people, so many people have said, have you tried this like in a dating format for like, as like a dating game? So I actually did a singles night at the meat cart. When was it? On Monday night. Um, and that was really interesting. Like I totally changed the prompts to be around, um, dating and self-love. And there was like, that got pretty deep. There were some really interesting things that came out from that experience. So yeah, it's always really interesting and reflective. And I don't think people, because it's so quick, I don't think people even realize that they're like reflecting.
Mhm.
So I will say, like, the entry point to my work is always light and playful, but like, there's real juice and meat to to
Yeah.
what I'm doing.
Oh, look at somebody wrote kisses. If we were drawing, kisses would be the answer. I love that. It's true. It's true. I wonder what they're doing in Europe. You know how in America we hug, we high five, do knuckles, weird stuff like that. But in Europe, where it's like kiss, kiss, on each cheek,
Mhm.
that can't even happen. So
Yeah, I know. I
weird.
know. I know. It's so weird. It's so weird. And even like when I'll take a walk in my neighborhood, it's like people like kind of like veer the other direct, when you see someone, you're kind of like, got to keep it, got to go to the other side of the sidewalk. And it just feels kind of yucky, when you're just like, I just want to say hi to you, you know?
Yeah, it does. It feels yucky. And there's a feeling of judgment that like
Mhm.
we don't really want to be judgmental. And so when those feelings creep up in us, it makes us feel bad. Like you can say, "Oh my God, why are they so afraid?" And it's judging, and
Yeah.
we don't want ourselves to be judging. So we
Yeah.
feel bad about ourselves for having laid down this judgment of why are they so afraid or whatever it is. And it's just such an awkward thing.
Mhm.
So this is just
Yeah.
what you do is just has to be so satisfying and rewarding for you.
It is. And it's something that I haven't um, tapped into is there is an element of, social justice work that's really important to me to integrate. So like when the best part of my job that I loved when I was working at the museum in Santa Cruz is I started this teen program that was really rooted in arts for social change. So the teens that I worked with looked at issues in the community and figured out creative ways to raise awareness around those issues, and through events and through such a wide range of things. It was amazing what they did. And so being able to carry that thread through my work is still really important to me. So something that I did during the pandemic is I started this program called Pen Pals for Progress, another Z,
Cute.
where I connected people. It was right before the election, and I connected people to basically, I paired people up. I ended up having like over 100 people sign up. I thought maybe like 20 people would sign up, but I connected people all over the country to have a pen pal to really write and reflect around what they felt really passionate about or just angsty about as we were gearing up for the election, and gave them a series of prompts to do that. So they had to write 2 letters to their pen pal and then 2 letters to elected officials. And I had like a QR code somewhere in here that basically like led to a site on a page on the Betterish website that had like templates to writing to elected officials.
Oh my God.
And then we had a meet cart session for those who were interested to connect more face to face, It was called Connection Before the Election. And so that was a really cool project that was more rooted in the social justice work that I feel really passionate about. And again, through a more creative lens and in a way that connected people more personally, because I was just seeing a lot of conversations happening on social media that I didn't feel were really like productive. So I was like, I feel like it's, and I know again, people are so like zoomed out. So I always like to have like a more reflective space to write letters and connect with someone in that format. I think was really meaningful. So that's something else.
Oh my gosh, that's fantastic. Hey, Taylor has a question. She
Yeah,
asked, what does this job do for you and your self work? Does it recharge you? Does it drain you? What would you
that
say?
is such a good question. And that's something I'm gauging right now in the sense of like, if it starts draining me, then I have to really like reevaluate. So there's certain, I will say there are like certain sessions that I do at the meat cart and they're so energizing. And I'm like, I will say most sessions I do here at the meat cart energizes me. Like I'll be very like in my zone, working on something like administrative or just like sending out emails, and I'll be like pretty like low on a low. And then I'm like, I don't know if I can like facilitate right now. But then I just, I show up here and I facilitate and I'm like so energized afterwards. So there are definitely moments like that. But because, I am still doing such a like I'm mostly doing meat cart things, but um, I did have a zine project pop up and it was like very quick. It was actually it was for a wedding. I have it right here. It was actually for a wedding invite for this really lovely couple.
Oh my God.
So basically their whole wedding invitation is like this zine, and their whole like wedding weekend is within this zine. But it was really quick, and I was getting a little drained from it. Like I hate admitting it, but like I was like by the end of it last week, um, it just felt really rushed. And I think I was getting a little like, I don't like, I want, this is a wedding invite. Like I want it to be, like, I don't want to feel rushed doing something that's going to be going out to, these people's loved ones. So there's definitely times where, I've been trying to actually every Monday morning, I'm trying to really force myself to have this like reflection time where I look at everything I did in the past week, and I look at what energized me and what drained me, and figuring out like what should I keep, because again, a lot of my work is really creative. What do I keep as a side project and like what do I keep as work? And I'm like, the zine thing was always something I did for fun on the side. And I'm like, do I want to keep that a just fun thing that I do for myself? Or do I want to do that as work? And so that's definitely something I grapple with. I don't think I'm fully answering your question, but it's definitely something as a creative person that is challenging, Taylor, for sure. Like it's definitely something that I'm trying to spend more time right now, kind of figuring out, do I put this out there as an offering, or, do I save that just for me?
Mm.
And that's hard.
That is a great answer. We all need to do that in our work. What are the things we want to keep, move forward with, and what do we not? I was thinking about this idea of okay, everybody in anybody listening has an entrepreneurial sense about them, and they're interested in going into business. And so when you were taking the class, like, what are some of the things that you did to help you understand whether this was right for you, whether, how you were going to pick and how were you going to focus? Like, what kind of, tell us a little bit about that process for you, developing your business.
Mhm. I'm trying to remember. I'm trying to think back to like the exact exercises that helped me. I think really looking at looking at the money element, and looking at like creating like a budget. Like, okay, if I do this creative work, like how much do I want to make, and how can I make that? Just really spending time looking at those numbers, which I am, as I mentioned, I am not a math person. And I also coming from that nonprofit background was like really just like intimidated and scared of that. But just like sitting down and looking at the numbers like made things a little bit more real, and also and then made me see like, okay, actually I could do this. Like in the beginning, a lot of people are like, sounds really cool, but how are you going to make money? Was like a big question. And when I finally like sat down and was like, okay, if I do like this amount of workshops and I have like this consulting gig and I have this, then it could all work out. And like my goal, at the time was like, I just want to be making more money than what I was making at the museum, which wasn't that much, to be honest. So I think doing that was really helpful. I'm trying to think of, I spent a lot of time that first year just like branding Betterish, and spending really like a lot of time around like, what do I want it to feel like when people land on the website? Like, I just want people to like feel the energy because I knew Betterish is like a nebulous concept and I knew people were not going to get it. And I was very aware of that and was like, but if they can like get it, if they can feel that sense of creativity, which I will say when people go to my website, they're like, they feel energized, they feel that creative spark. And if they can at least get that, then I can further guide them down the Betterish door.
Nice. I would like you to put your website in the chat so everybody, and then I'll also put it in the notes, the like video notes, because we do need to go see it. We need to go see it and get a sense of the energy. That'll be so good.
And I will admit, I actually just made a separate meat cart website. So I will put that in as well, just because that has been the thing that's been bringing me the most business. And I just realized it's become its own thing. So I did in the fall create a separate meat cart website. So just know that exists.
Okay. Oh, good. Hey, now, so tell us about what you see. Where do you see this going in like the next year, the next, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Tell us what your future looks like.
Sure. So one of my goals actually is to work more with universities or just school settings. So I really miss working with students. So at the museum, like I said, I ran the teen program. I also ran the internship program for college students, and that's something that's definitely missing. Like I said, I love being a space maker and I love making space for people to kind of step into their element, their power, whatever, empowering people to like really find their thing. And that's something that's definitely missing right now from what I'm doing. So I've had like two ideas. One is to start this like Betterish ambassador program that would like work with like student life on like college campuses to basically have like a pop-up. It wouldn't be a meat cart, it would be like a meat stand. And I would basically send all these projects and things that I've been doing, and the students would lead the work. And I'd probably obviously do like a training with the students on Zoom, and then it would be student led. So that way I feel like the impact of this work is going out further than just me, and it's going out in a way where I feel like students can feel like empowered to kind of use this creative work in a new format and to bring people together.
Oh my gosh, just a little minute here. Like every resident assistant, what like the RAs in a dorm,
Yeah.
they all have to do programming. They all hate it. And
Yeah.
me, I loved it so much when I was one, but this is exactly what they could use. I mean, if you were to even, go to CU and meet with their resident assistants and teach them how to do these things, it would be so incredibly impactful.
Exactly. So that is a big goal of mine. And it's just finding the right person within these university settings. So there's like that path that I'm really interested in taking, just because I feel like you said, it is very needed, because I do feel like, RAs are like, oh, what am I going to do? But if they just had like this kit and they could just like run it and it's like super fun. My other, in like a similar but different vein, is actually to like teach my own course really rooted in creative community building. in which I would like pair students up with local organizations or entrepreneurs to design an interactive participatory project, and make it, because I know for me in school, the classes that were the most impactful were the ones that were just super hands-on and in the community. So being able, again, to like be that space maker to like connect people to different people, places, and things, is definitely something that I'm really, really interested about. And also just sharing more on like this work in creative community building, because I don't think it's very, like, I didn't know about it when I was, definitely not when I was in college. Like, I didn't know community arts was a thing. I didn't know that. I don't even think knew the word community building, when I was in college. So like, I just want to get this kind of work more out there, and especially working with more students. So that's definitely, a goal of mine for sure.
Mhm. Well, a couple people have said something about we need to do something like this for MSEO, so somehow maybe we can have a group of us that work together on bringing it to the MSU community for more when we are on campus. It would be
Definitely.
nice to do it when we're not, but
Yeah.
even with the idea that at some point we can bring something like this to the MSU campus, that would just be amazing.
Yeah, I'd love to. I would love to. Keep me
Uh,
in mind.
Yes. Hey, okay. So what would you say? You probably everything that you do surprises me. And oh yeah, and I had asked that question and you were like, I don't know. I think everything you do is surprising. But the idea that I maybe talk a little bit about how um like what you do combined with the topic of social justice. Like, how do you see yourself going in and helping that community or bringing that topic about? That to me maybe is the most surprising, that you can take this idea of play and this idea of social justice and bring those two
Mhm.
together.
I think a lot of it is around starting with just like conversations, and creating that safe space to have those conversations. So actually over the summer, Meatful Mondays shifted to being Meatful Mondays, let's talk about race and racism. So yeah, the prompts were really geared around, talking about, race and racism, and having like creating a space to have these conversations, I think is the first, really important element to making that work happen. And for me, like, again, I was seeing a lot of things happening, unfolding on social media. And I was like, these conversations just need to be happening in real time. Like there was a lot of like things happening. And so I think it's about being a space maker and creating that space for, these conversations to be had. I know with like Pen Pals for Progress, there was a lot of people that signed up who were like, I've never written to an elected official before. Like this is really like empowering for me, because I've just never felt, like I could, or I just didn't know the template, like I didn't know what to write. So just creating those opportunities, to make it accessible too. I think it's about accessibility. And I think, with social justice work, sometimes, people can be intimidated or overwhelmed or feel like they're not activisty enough, or and it's about how you frame and how you like invite that person to do the work, I think.
That's awesome. All right. So then he asked about your business strategy. What would you say your business strategy is?
That's a tough one for me. I actually, so being strategic is a huge challenge for me. And, I don't have a clear path. I remember when I left that entrepreneurial class, I was like, I thought I was going to leave with a strategic plan, and that wasn't part of the agenda. And I remember talking to a few people, being kind of like having anxiety. I was like, I don't have a business plan. Like, how am I supposed to, like, I'm starting a business. Aren't I supposed to have a business plan? And I actually did take, a class last year through this, what was it? The Colorado, like the business center. It was about a year ago, specifically to work on my business plan. and I started it, and then COVID happened. So like everything that I wrote went out the door. So I am an example of a person that does not have a business plan, which might not be the best answer for you all, because are you all working on a business plan?
Some, but even those that are have a tendency to, like some of the people in the class, in some of my classes are writing business plan. We have a thing called Launch Denver where we give people a chance to, it's the like 9 week class, kind of like what you took the Ice House class.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
even though we are there to write business plans, people still don't write business plans.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that makes me feel betterish about my my lack. I've like started. I've started a business plan, and yeah, COVID kind of everything that I had like written kind of went out the door, and I've just been um, really in a more spontaneous space, and
Uh-huh.
it's been working. So I apologize for those of you who are looking for more of like a concrete answer, but I'm I float in this space of spontaneity and discovery and exploration.
Well, that is what your business is all about. So it makes sense that that's what would happen. Sometimes that's hard to fit this kind of a thing into a box, you know? You don't
Mhm.
have employees at this point, so you don't have to worry about management. You don't have, you have to figure out what kind of business structure you have. So what are you, LLC, corporation?
I'm
So
an LLC. Yep, LLC. Yeah.
good. Well, there you go. So you're set up.
Yes, yes, I did. That was something I did like right after I finished the entrepreneurial development class. I did register as an LLC right away, and I registered like I have like a a separate business account. Like I have everything like separated for sure in that sense. But yeah, beyond that, I don't have a strategic plan, but I've been thinking about revisiting it.
Oh, good. Well, I just, it's fun because it's like planning for the future. And some of us love to do that. Some of us,
Yeah,
I don't know. It is a thing you have to do that you have to exercise and get better at planning for the future, I think. Hey,
certainly.
so considering everybody on this call is entrepreneurial, what would you say is some advice you would give them when starting a business?
I would say, and again, I touched upon this a little bit earlier, is like just if you have this idea, just give it a whirl. I think sometimes we like hold things in a little too long. Just start putting things out there. And like I said earlier, also, I think a lot of times as you're starting a business, there's a lot of focus on honing in on your pitch, honing in. And I'm here to tell you that it's okay to throw a lot of different things out there, and see what sticks, because I feel like there's things that I have thrown out there that didn't stick, but it's like nice to have in my back pocket, because like even like I had thrown like the zine thing out as for businesses, like I don't know, maybe 2 years ago, and I had a few things right away, and then it went away, and then someone asked me to do this like wedding zine last week. So it's like nice to just always have these things in your back pocket. You just never know when you're going to need to like pull out those skills or those assets. um so yeah, just being open and being willing to yeah, throw it all out there. I would also say it's okay. I think also in the beginning, there's a lot of focus on like branding yourself and like being on brand. You got to stay on brand, especially like marketing and social media. Um, you don't you don't have to be on brand. Like it's okay to go off brand. I think that when you focus so much, I think for a while I was like, because Betterish, it was kind of a nebulous concept at first. I felt like I had to be on brand, and then I realized like it wasn't leaving enough space for me to explore and discover other things that Betterish could be. So I guess I just want to say, don't stress out about being on brand too much, just because I feel like, especially as you're starting, like things are going to change. Things are going to change so much. And I think if anything, this pandemic has taught us to be like more flexible and adaptable and resilient. So I think really just staying open and just knowing that it's okay to change and shift things, even though it's not on brand.
Hmm. Hey, I heard you say a couple of different times the idea of perfectionism and sort of moving away from that idea. And I'd love you to talk about that because so many of us feel like we're perfectionists. And I
Mhm.
believe that, everything's a continuum and perfectionism is a point that we never achieve. And who defines what that is? So, what do you mean? What do you think about perfectionism and how do you deal with that?
Yeah, and I think speaking of like a lot of my thoughts on branding comes from that because when people are like, you have to be on brand, that starts tapping into this like element of perfectionism that goes against everything I believe with my betterish concept. So for me, it really stemmed from where I grew up on the East Coast. I grew up in an environment that was like incredibly academic and athletic, and I was neither of those things. I wasn't an academic, and I wasn't um, athletic, and there was a lot of pressure to like get all A's, go to an Ivy League school, do this perfectionism tendency, and it really kind of messed me up for a while. And as I feel like I was coming more into like, my own path and my own philosophies, I realized that it's just not a healthy thing. Striving for perfectionism, striving to be the best is just not a healthy thing to be carrying into the world. So that's why like this concept of betterish is, really rooted in that idea that things don't need to be the best. And there's real like beauty and truth in really in the process. And so many times we put emphasis on like the finished product, which is a great and wonderful thing. But I personally feel like the magic and the glory really lies in the process of getting to that point. And a lot of times we don't really acknowledge those little things that get us to the big things.
Yeah.
So it's really taking time to like slow down. I think also, we live in such a fast paced environment. I do think again, another silver lining of this pandemic has forced a lot of us to like slow down and acknowledge the little things in life that make our lives better. So I've a lot of it. I keep coming back to this concept of like, what do you like pay attention to? Like when you think about like what are you paying attention to? What do you tend to during your days, and really acknowledging what you tend to, because they end up being like smaller things that end up leading to the bigger things. So I really believe in that, and I've been thinking about how do I incorporate that even more into my work, this like concept of slowing down and taking time to acknowledge the process and the progress.
Oh, I love that. Wow, Emily, I am so thrilled to have you here today. And before we close, I'm going to give you 7 seconds, everybody on this call, to write in the chat what you gained, how you feel, what you gained or how you feel. 1 or 2 or 3 words. Confidence. I learned something from you. Invigorated. Good. Open minded. Good. Less attached to perfect. Good. Creativity for the win. Good. Oh my gosh. Woo! Those small steps of
Yay.
progress. Progress is so important. And that's why it's important too. Like I feel like setting goals and is not everybody does it. And people are like, oh, I don't do that. But you know what? When you set little goals for yourself, you can celebrate them. That's when you take a moment and think, oh my gosh, I did it. I had that first Zoom call that I waited 3 years to have.
Sure. Is it okay if I screenshot this chat, just because I have something on my shelf called a confidence jar. So on days that aren't the most betterish and I'm feeling low, I'll put things in my confidence jar and then I'll take them out to look at it as a way to like pump me up. So is it okay? I would love to screenshot this and put this in my confidence jar if that's
Oh my
okay.
gosh, absolutely. Yeah, I think you can, weirdly enough, you can like cut and paste and
And
select the whole thing.
do all those cool things. I also just wanted to mention, I'm happy to share my email with everyone. So if anyone wants to reach out to me directly, I'm really happy to continue this conversation one-on-one, or if you have any more questions. I feel like there were a few questions that got asked and I didn't get to answer. So I'll just put that in the chat, my email.
Perfect. Oh my goodness. It's so good. This has just been so good.